It's important to know that these mugs are for sale now for the low price of $10. Black Magic ones, $15. I'm Dave.
I'm Sean.
This is Barstools and
Bandtalk, the complete maritime music bucket list. Woo!
All right. Big show tonight. I think you're going to really appreciate this guy. I'll let Sean bring him in. We're just talking about what he's doing. I mean, everyone's kind of not busy right now with the whole COVID time, stuff like that, but he's still finding a way to keep busy doing some streaming, doing some producing. Talk with Bruce Guthrow, going to do some songwriting circles. Yeah, Sean, I'll let you bring him in, brother.
Yeah, so this gentleman, I knew of him. We had, what we know as MJ Penton, but MJ sent me a direct message and basically said, if you don't get this gentleman on, I'm going to be very upset and never want to be on the arse end of that. So I gave him a call, and what a great guy. Kim Dunn, St. FX grad, played with literally the who's who of the scene. A lot of the people that we've been talking about and talking with, Kim's played with. Kind of known as a musical director of sorts, and just an all-around great guy. So we're going to bring on, without any further ado, Mr. Kim Dunn.
Should do a drum roll. There he is.
There we go.
How
there you go, brother.
I'm doing okay, guys. How are you guys doing?
Oh, hanging in there. So good to see you. Good to finally get you on. So you and I chatted a couple weeks ago, and we kind of, did a little bit of what we were going to talk about, and you were telling me about. Well, why don't we start with this? I know you're an ex-grad. I know you went through X and all that stuff, but give a quick little bio on Kim Dunn. Where were you bred? Where'd you grow up?
Well, I grew up in North Sydney, in Cape Breton, and born and raised. Lots of music down there. I grew up surrounded by music, and
you know anybody in Bredor by any chance?
I certainly do.
You know any Cantwells in Bredor by any chance?
What? Give me a first name. I know some Cantwells.
Well, there was a family of 18. Each one of the 18 had 15. The 15 had 30. So no.
18. Holy God! Yeah. Did everybody meet everybody? Did everybody know?
Anytime I was playing at Blasters, I never dated anybody. Let's put it that way. For fear they'd be a cousin.
not a lot to do in Bredor, right? So.
Well, the first guy that comes to mind musically is Reggie McLeod. I used to play with Reggie years and years ago. And of course, Bredor was home to the Blue Mist Tavern, right? The old Blue Mist Tavern back in the day. I mean, that was before my time. I never went there. Okay. But I remember it was kind of a mythical place to me because I remember, like, my brother Paul played there. Would play there all the time in bands, and I kind of witnessed him go through that. And of course, the family, my older brothers and sisters went there to hang out and for social scenes, and it was a happening place. So,
okay. Sorry to interrupt you there. You're on a roll there. Go ahead. So you're North Sydney. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, that was it. I grew up in a very musical family. Very musical town. Lots of music down there in Cape Breton, man. Lots of music going around. Lots of bands, lots of places to play back in the day, and kind of vibrant, kind of a vibrant little scene for such a little place. Of course, that hasn't changed. Everything is music down there, from whether it's kitchens or everybody plays, it seems. But yeah, and then so I started out just kind of learning how to play by ear, and I eventually went to school at University St. FX, and I studied music there through the 80s. And out of there, I moved to Halifax, and I've been here ever since.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you were obviously playing, before you went to X. and then you went to X. Did you find that maybe? Well, I've asked a lot of people that have gone there, and the answers I get everything from they want to become a better musician to they want to end up knowing more to they just want the experience. So for you, what was the reason you went there?
Yeah, like all of the above. Like I think at the time it kind of made sense because I was just kind of playing around and whatever, and whatever band I was playing with at the time, it had broken up and everybody was kind of going their separate ways, and so I didn't really know what I was going to do, and so timing wise it was just kind of perfect. And initially I don't know if I really had a set goal in mind. I just kind of knew that it was going to be a pretty positive move, or at least I hoped it would.
Sure.
And but it was just kind of like sort of something to do. And I knew that I was going to have to kind of, you know, do something in regards to maybe furthering my education, whether or not it was going to be music. Um, Sort of, you make your mark or get yourself on a path or whatever it might be. I didn't exactly know what that was going to be, but I knew that I had to make a step. So that's what I did. And when I got there, um, it just it just turned out to be a really good move. I think for all kinds of reasons, creatively, meeting lots of people, lots of contacts that I have these days are from and with people that I went to school with back in those days.
Sure.
To this day, I think it really just helped a lot, all the way around.
What year
And of
did you
course,
started? What year did you start at X?
I went to X in '84,
84.
and you're right. I was kind of established as a player, maybe not necessarily a jazz player by any stretch. I was kind of starting to get into that a little bit, but certainly not a jazz player. I was going into a jazz program, but by comparison to some of the other people, a lot of the other people that were there at the time, I guess I was what you would call somebody who's yeah. I had some skills. My playing was there.
Right.
And that went a long way too, I think. Um, uh, but yeah, just sort
So
of went.
who were you playing with before you went to school? Like which bands? Was it all North Sydney, or was it locally in Halifax, or who were you playing with before you went into school?
Yeah, no, it was all bands from North Sydney. It was just and it wasn't really a lot of bands. It was only, well, two or three, no, three or four. What was it? I moved into, like, my brother Paul was playing in a local band at the time, um, a band called Medusa, right? And they were a pretty decent band. They were playing the bars and busy and full of professional musicians, so they were all making a living at it, and they cut a record and stuff like that back then at the time. They were doing okay, but Paul got the call from Minglewood to when Minglewood. Paul didn't play with Matt on the Red album, Matt's first album, but he joined when they signed the deal with RCA,
Okay.
and then they went off and recorded "Can't You See" album. Well, Paul was a part of that. Um, Matt asked Paul to play, and he knew Paul, and they knew each other from before that. So it was an obvious thing. If Matt was going to choose a keyboard player, Paul was an obvious choice. So Paul went to Matt Minglewood, and I, I can still see my mother rolling her eyes when I told her that I was gonna just take Paul's position in Medusa. She was like, "Okay, here we go again. Damn." So, by the way, me going to Saint FX, I think my mother had a little bit of encourage, a lot to do with encouraging me to do that too. It was a happy day for her when I told her I was going. But so that's how that all kind of transformed. And then Medusa, um, I played with that band for, I don't know, a couple of years. Made a little money. You know, I was still in high school at the time.
Right.
I came out of that band, joined another band, got some good miles out of that for a little while. That band broke up, joined another band, and then another band after that. And then I went to X in '84. So I chummed around in a few bands, about 4 bands before I went to Saint of X. Yeah.
I like to say I went to X too, but it's because I played a Coca conference. I
Oh yeah.
go there, but I get to play a Coca conference, and it was funny. I just remember it being nerve wracking because all the people from the X band were watching the Coca conference. So that was kind of interesting, right?
We
Yeah.
played there at Sweet Surrender, Sean. We played there. Remember? St.
Yeah,
Effects.
played there in another band.
Oh
Actually,
yeah.
we just shared a Coca conference with Sharon Burry.
Okay.
Right.
Was basically what they used to do is all the buyers every year would go to one university, and that year it happened to be at St. FX, and it worked out
Right.
great, getting a lot of gigs out of it. So
Do you remember Coke? Wow, I haven't heard that term in a while. They don't
yeah,
have those. They don't have those. Haven't had those in a while. They
no,
have Contact East now, which is probably the same, a little bit similar and stuff like that. But where would you play when you went there? Do you remember?
that's a good question.
Yeah, I don't remember either. It was a pretty big stage. It was like maybe the Student Union building or something. I don't know where.
Yeah, probably the McKay room then. I guess.
That sounds right. That sounds right.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just remember being intimidated as hell. I was like, holy Jesus. Because like, you were saying effects students, they were like, okay, you know. But,
I wasn't, but
Yeah.
because it was only because I knew one or two people that happened to be there that were bigger yahoos than I was. So it's kind of
Right.
they can go to X, I can go to X. I was like not too worried. So you get out of there. You do it, that's a 4-year program there. You do that. And it's funny because I know a lot of people that have gone through X and they get out. Some of them become music teachers or teachers.
Sure.
Some of them don't even use.
That's what your mom wanted, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But you graduated. You kind of hit the ground running. You started doing. You started putting those 4 years to good use.
I did. Yeah. Like I kind of started playing in the music scene as soon as I moved to Halifax, fresh out of Saint of X. And geez, man, I mean, I don't know, I was fortunate. The phone hasn't stopped ringing since. You know, I never really felt like I was really hungry for work. I was always doing something. There was always something to do, and I was always kind of busy. But in those days, I mean, it was still very much for the first couple of years that I was in Halifax. It was I was a gigging, you know, I was a gigging musician. I got hooked up with a couple of local bands, and I was playing around the scene, and which was great, and meeting some people. And I guess my bread and butter at the time was sort of like there were a few places around Halifax that at the time that, you know, they still did a lot of piano bars.
Okay, yeah.
And the Holiday Inns
Yep.
in Halifax and Dartmouth and the Chateau, and if you got into that circuit, then you could make some decent coin, and they even had like matinees or whatever. So anyway, I mean, I did a lot of those, and while I was playing in the bars with some bands and stuff like that, and freelancing and getting calls, um, and then and you know, I mean, really, it just kind of built itself, almost almost in essence, like one call by call by call by call. If I look back on it right now, it would be impossible to do. But if I could, you would see the little sort of transitions and the little steps up the along the way and everything that just was basically the result of one call, which led to another call, and which led to another job, and you met some people, and then you led to another job, and then, you know, and through the years, the types of jobs started changing, and, you know, I got a little bit away from the bars, and I'm getting ahead of myself here, but um, you know, eventually to the point where I stopped doing bars because I was touring and playing more theaters and with people like Rita and Rita McNeil and that kind of thing. But at the time, when just not long after I moved to Halifax, my best call was Minglewood. And once again, I just kind of, it felt like I was following in my brother Paul's footsteps. But I got the call from Matt to do some gigs, and I started playing with Matt in the early '90s, and I put in about 8 or 9, I don't know, 7 or 8 years with him, and that turned out to be a great gig because again, I mean, I was pretty steady with that. He kept me really busy, but Matt wasn't. Matt was flexible enough so that he understood that I was freelancing, and so there were other things that I did and still did, and so I kept working and working and kept taking other calls and doing this and that and whatever. And that was my priority in terms of
Sure.
the band work. But the thing that I didn't want to just kind of like turn my back on was the other things that were coming up, like studio calls and you'd get calls to do shows, like something was going on at the Rebecca Cohn that needed a house band or something like that, or CBC things, or those were the kinds of things that I didn't want to turn down.
Well, it sounds a lot like Bruce Dixon's story. And Bruce Dixon, we had
Well,
Bruce Dixon on here, and he told
exactly.
us the same kind of story. Like when he met up with Bob Quinn at CBC, that became kind of a staple gig. But although he kept on touring, but there's a
Yeah.
reason why Bass came in. Like it's just a pleasure to talk to you so far because I could tell what kind of person you are. You're getting the phone calls because, well, as my friend Sean says, because you're not a dick. You sound like a good guy with with a good work ethic. And you're going to get the calls because you're easy to work with and you're professional. That's probably what's happening, I'm guessing.
Well, I mean, yeah. Well. Thanks. That's good to hear. I just thought it was because of my looks.
Well,
But
that's obvious. So,
I just. But that can get you down too, right? If people are just calling you for your looks, right? I mean, hey, I'm not just another piece of. No, I'm just kidding, of course. But yeah, that there's a lot of truth in that for sure. Not just from my perspective. Everybody would love to call or play with a great player, but man, it really is at the end of the day about communicating with people and getting along, and people would choose that. I mean, you still have to be able to do the job. You still have to have some chops, but if it came down to, well, this guy over here is a pretty great player, but I don't like working with him. Well, what do you think, right? It's good. That's kind of the way it works. That's exactly the way it works for sure. And
Well, I say that I say that whole thing about people not being dicks because I mean I spent 16 years working in hockey as well as music, and there's an awful lot of parallels, and the parallels are that typically the people that have gone on to do really really good things by and large don't have egos of the guys that really haven't done a whole heck of a lot. It's bizarre how it works, right?
yeah,
And so I often say every time I interview somebody, hey, it's great that you're not a dick because it's like you meet so many people that, just have such a sense of self-worth. And it's too bad, it's, you like people who are talented and humble, right?
yeah.
Which
yeah.
you are, but there's something else that you're saying to me here too that's really interesting because as far back as when you first started, a lot of people say the scene now was kind of like, fill-ins and sub gigs, but really it's always been that way. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, well, I mean, for sure, a certain aspect about it, absolutely. As far as the scene now, I'm probably I'm probably not the best guy to ask because I don't really know what's going on in the scene anymore. Because, like I said, I'm not downtown and I'm not kind of well, I'm still in the scene in the sense that there's there's that clique of people. The jobs that I get a call for, and Bruce Dixon gets called for, and those types of things. It seems like it's just a different kind of call.
Yep, no question.
Um, like I said, it's not for that bar gig anymore, but It's just a different kind of call. It's a studio gig, or it's a corporate gig, or it's a any number of things. But um, in terms of a scene, there it I guess I don't know if there's as many places to play anymore for bands, but I think there's still still a scene. I got a nephew who's just kind of um, well, my brother Paul's son, who's a great guitar player, and he's young, and his wife sings and everything, and they're doing lots of stuff downtown. And there's I don't know about the scene, but there's certainly a click. There's certainly a really great, vibrant um, group of musicians and young kids that are downtown doing it and eating it alive, and they're gonna work up through the ranks the same way.
Yeah.
It's all gonna happen for them, and if they stick at it. And
The reason, Kim, why I brought it up, because I'm in the middle of the scene, I guess. I mean, I play quite a bit, and I some sub gigs and stuff like that. But there's some people that I talk to that really struggle with the because when Dave and I came up, we were part of the thing where you rehearsed, you had a show, you had a light man, you had a sound man, you had
right,
200.
right,
We were very rehearsed, so it wasn't like we weren't reading charts. It was just like you had to have your cues right, or your light man was going to be mad at you, right?
right.
So there's a lot of people that are in that kind of genre
Isn't that funny? That's
struggle with
funny.
they struggle with the sub thing now. You know what I mean? Like it's just kind of
Right.
a band right now that our regular guitar player decided he wasn't going to do it anymore a year and a half ago. I play with a different
Yeah.
guitar player every gig. You just
Yeah.
show up, do it, and it works, right? So
It's a mindset, isn't that funny? Like, I mean, we were of the mindset like back in the day when I was going through those bands before I went to university. And just like you say, man, we'd start a band and it would take us 4 months of rehearsing your off
yeah,
in a dingy basement or something somewhere. I put a band together in the basement of Fred Tom's, out in Whitney Pier. Remember that place?
yeah,
Um, and and like that kind of stuff, because that the idea of not only subbing, but well, I guess subbing, or just taking a call for a one-time gig and throwing a bunch of guys together that can go out and jam. I mean, it was just a whole different, the whole different mindset. I can call up Bruce Dixon, and I know that he knows 1,000 songs and the same songs that I know. I mean, I know 2 or 3 drummers that are the same way, and a couple of guitar players. Back in those other days, there was also this mindset where you just felt like it had to be like the record, right? It had to be, and all that stuff, which is, well, no, it doesn't. I mean, so it's just a completely different mindset where you could just get some guys together and do a gig and go out and play music, or you get a call to go do that with a band or whatever, and you go do it. And it's bizarre. I don't know if I would have had that in me 30 years ago. I probably would
yeah.
have had to woodshed or practice for 4 weeks or something.
It's funny because I'm
know?
learning it now, right now, to be honest, Kim, and it was so foreign. When Sean and I hooked up, Sean and I played together for 36 years ago, and every 10 years we
Yeah.
play in a band together. And he's telling me about the scene now, and I'm out of it for a little while. I mean, I was in and out, in and out, in and out, and getting ready to do something again now before COVID hit. But I said, well, I don't understand why you're subbing. Like, because I mean, back in our day, it was like you had a band of 4 or 5 guys, and you were brothers, and that was it. It was loyalty to those people, and you learned those songs, and that was it. Like, you never
Yeah.
think about, going to rehearse or jam with somebody else. That was just a big no-no. Let alone play a gig with it. That means you're leaving the band. But that's the norm now. The norm is like you're a versatile player that you're going to be able to play a number of different genres. You know what I mean? And you're
Sure.
going to get a call to do this stuff, and it just seems so foreign to me. But the more people we talk to, I'm learning that that's the new norm. So
Yeah.
I get it.
Well, how can you hold a band together anyway anymore? I mean,
This is
it
it.
seems like because I don't think the places to play are there, and unless you're like, there are a couple of bands that are doing it. They're doing it. They do a lot of corporate stuff downtown or whatever, or they just play when they play. And the people like Paul Lamb, like
Yep.
Paul is gigging all the time, and he has sort of like regular guys. Um, Sometimes he does stuff by himself, but he has stuff that he does with his regular guys. But like, if you're a band, the way that the Trues are a band or something like that,
Yeah.
then that's just a whole other thing, you know. Like it's taken over to. It's less about having enough places to play in a scene that can keep you busy and then tour around the Maritimes or whatever, like we did, and it's more about, you know, everybody's got a studio in their basement, and so they
Yeah.
can go and put an album together, and then they can go and workshop it at the East Coast Music Award conference or Contact East, drum up a little interest with the management, and then you know, and then build it that way, you know, through marketing, through profiling, through, and so it's, I think it's a different set of building blocks that people are using. In fact, sometimes it seems like once you get management, they're almost creating an illusion that you're busier than you actually are,
That's a
you
fair
know.
statement.
um
Statement.
you know, until they don't actually want you playing in a bar or doing this or that. And you know, if you get over the hurdle into the next sort of level, then you can be busy, like Rose Cousins and like all those people, it, who are doing that, and the Catherine McClellans and the Gordy Sampsons. But there was a while when all of those people were kind of, they had, they didn't have a whole lot of gigs, you know,
Yeah.
but they were fostering their singing and songwriting careers, and just going down that path, which again, man, that was foreign to me back when I started. You know, like you know, like you, it was all about putting a band together and hitting the road and becoming the next freaking Led Zeppelin. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
it's
Well,
weird.
I mean, we're the band that I'm in now. I mean, we do maybe 5 bars.
Yeah,
Uh, Everything else is corporate events, university events, and weddings, and that's it.
that's awesome.
And
That's awesome.
we did 80 some odd shows last year, and it was looking like it was going to be a good year this year, and obviously all the stuff hit. But my point is that when you're that active and you got to roll with the punches, and somebody decides he's not going to show up or doesn't want to show up, you got to make the call. And I think to
Yeah,
your game, you got to have, obviously, if you're a good person and you're competent on your instrument, the phone's going to ring.
yeah, yeah. It hasn't stopped ringing yet. You know,
It's not the old
I don't
party
know.
line back in North Sydney, eh? Ding, ding, ding,
Yeah,
ding,
yeah.
ding.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I've been pretty fortunate, really, really, guys. I really have.
but you're smart too because you're versatile enough to learn not just one genre. Like, like we were just rock kids. We were doing the '80s rock stuff. So if I get a call, it's like, yeah, we need a jazz bass player. It's like, well, I don't know, geez, I'll be lost, right?
Yeah,
But if you can learn many different styles, especially as a keyboard player, because it was funny you were saying that. I was wondering what you're doing in the '80s because the '80s were big in rock keyboard stuff. But then, in '70s keyboard stuff too, obviously, if you're doing, the Hammond organ stuff. But as you're getting
yeah,
actually into piano bars, well, that's a whole different, line of events. So it's a whole
yeah,
different ball game, right? So
for
good on
sure.
you. That's
Yeah,
good on you, brother.
yeah, yeah. It's busy. And since I started getting into recording my own stuff and doing my own shows and stuff like that, that's that's kind of created a whole other thing on the side that you know, it supplements a lot of what I do too. And
Sure.
it's great. You know, it's really great. So that works. That works out really well. You
So
know,
as we're doing this, and somebody's going, okay, who's this handsome man that keeps getting calls? Drop a few names. So you mentioned Matt. You mentioned, how long did you play with Rita for?
played with Rita for about 13 years, maybe give or
Oh
take
wow,
one,
wow.
something like that. And I got that gig because of Dixon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bruce was, you know, he was the when they went through a personnel change, um, and he was the only one that stayed. He and Rita were great friends, and so that was like, that band that did the TV show that she did for a couple of years, Dave Burton, and and so on. they all changed, and they were looking for some new guys, and Bruce gave me a call. And I think I might have. I don't think I was playing with Matt anymore by then. But I was also working with people like uh, just before Rita. I was playing with like George Canyon, um, Julie and Austin. You know, some of the
Right.
country guys that were they kept me busy. You know, because they were putting songs out on the radio, and they were creating some buzz. They had a hit or two, and so you know I got hooked up with those guys, and they were touring. You know, geez, I think I played with God. We did like a good solid 2 years on a bus with Julian on a tour bus. You know, just it seemed like we were going all the time. And the same with George Canyon when I played with George for about a year or so. But then and now it's like that, and then it was like Jimmy Rankin, and same deal. I just played with Jimmy for for a few years, like 10 or 11 or 12 years, but uh, not not always as busy because Jimmy got to the point where he still had some band gigs, but he was still doing lots of things that were more pared down, you know.
Right.
With just himself and his guitar player, they go and do duo stuff. So Jimmy was easier to work around. I was still able to play with Jimmy, but I was doing lots of other stuff and things like that. Matt Anderson, still play with Matt whenever he calls. You know, he makes the call. He always gives me a call to do things. You know, things like that, and just a pile of people who came along the way. Play a lot with Heather Rankin now. I loved my time with Laura Smith, God love her,
Yeah.
um, who we just lost. You know, just I started playing with Laura for about 5 years ago, and that's a big loss. I really miss her. I just loved playing with Laura. That was another level of. It was pretty special. It's pretty special. Great, great tune. She's a great musician. She was a great musician, and we kind of clicked, you know, musically.
I think when your phone went dead that time, Sean, before we went on the air, Kim was telling me that they're actually looking to posthumously like release some of Laura's song. Is that right?
Yeah, her record label decided the Borealis Records in Ontario. They are going to put together a kind of like a best of compilation, and but they want it like you know, they wanted to put a couple of new songs on there to include with some of the older stuff, and because there's a couple of songs that she wrote a couple of years back that we were doing, and they're killer songs. They're really
Wow.
great songs, and so the last time I talked to Borealis, they also want to turn it into. They wanted to incorporate some of her artwork and some of her
Okay.
poetry and stuff like that. So it's going to be a really nice little package. You know, they're going overboard on it a little bit, so that's pretty cool. That'll be they're looking at trying to release that in November.
Okay.
So that'll be pretty special, I think.
Nice send off.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Right
So
on.
Kim, you must have been right around. I mean, like Rita was world. I mean, world renowned. So you must have been traveling all over the place, right around the world. I'm sure. Were you or no?
I actually didn't do the world like with Rita. I mean, like Bruce did. Um, that was slightly before my time. Those guys went. They were down under. You know, they went to Australia and lots of other places. Uh, by the time I joined Rita, it was mostly Canada, and
Okay.
we dipped down into the States a couple of times, but it was mostly Canada. Uh, you know, for the most part. Yeah, yeah.
Right on. So I mean, and
Yeah.
it's as I'm listening to you talk, a good buddy of mine is Brad Davidge, and Brad has played with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny. I get to know Brad obviously through music, but then I get to know him through hockey, and then I get to know him again through music because he and I kind of bump into each other all the time.
Great
And
musician, man.
he is, and similar sort of tale. I mean, he's an ex-grad. He kind of went out there. He signed with Natalie, and he had a couple bands, and then now he's playing with the Staticona band, and and ripping on that. So it's really funny to kind of hear the tales, because I remember, I don't know if do you know Mark Horton?
Yeah, sure.
So a good buddy of mine, and he would have Christmas parties or whatever, and there'd be Brad, and there'd be Lenny Gallant, and there'd be like all these dudes hanging out at Mark's, and it was just cool because you'd hear kind of similar tales to what you're talking about. It gives you it's a world that I'm not necessarily super involved in, but it's good to hear that this is healthy.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is, for sure. I don't think there's a whole lot of one thing going on, but there's a lot of different things, a little bit of a lot of things going on. You know what I mean?
I like that. A little bit of a lot.
Yeah, and so but the circle is small, and I mean there are a number of different circles. I don't get a call to play with certain people, but in my own little clique, one thing spins off of another, like we were talking about earlier, and it just seems to keep going around. Just seems to keep going around,
Listen,
sure.
I've worked my job working sales, and sales is all about networking. If you get work, you can sell stuff, plain and simple, and it's personality and technique, I guess, and the music thing, and I've known it for years, and I mean, I see it now, when I get calls, it's like I'll get a call from somebody who couldn't do a gig, but they called me. It's that, 3 deep sort of networking thing where, like you were saying again, be a good person, show up and do the job, don't be falling down drunk all over the place, and you'll get the call. So, again, it's just interesting how, you gotta build and foster those networks, and the phone will ring, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's for sure, and I think being versatile certainly was a card that I got to play. That helps a lot. I don't know exactly what it is, but like it may be a subtle thing for some people, but like Heather, man, I mean, I've had to sub out of Heather's gig a couple of times, and she had a hard time finding somebody. And there's lots of players around, and she tried a couple, and they kind of worked out. They did the job, made her happy, helped her get through, and did what
But they're not from North Sydney, though, brother. That's the problem. They're not from North Sydney.
They never heard of the Blue Mist Tavern, boy. Yeah. But there was just something about it that they didn't have enough of. They did what they did well.
Yeah.
What they knew how to do well, but there were certain things in Heather's music that they didn't necessarily. They weren't suited for. I wouldn't say they couldn't totally do, but just maybe not necessarily suited for.
Right.
So therefore you got a situation where, like I said, it pays to be just being able to have that little bit of versatility is huge. It's humongous, in terms of getting the call back and establishing those. It's one thing to have the networking, but there's another thing that happens too when you truly solidify your part in some of these things. I mean, I make the joke all the time, like I bend over backwards to make a gig if I have to, because I'm terrified that if I don't make one, they're going to realize that they don't need me. They'll realize that, hey, wait a second. So, but I've solidified a few things over the years. Put it that way.
That's a good word. Kim, this
Well,
is
I'm glad,
that's what
I'm glad you said that. It's one thing to get the call once, but getting a call many times. I mean, big deal. You get it once, that's one gig. But I mean, if you keep getting it, that's the trick. And
Yeah.
you know,
How
again,
could you not? How could you not call like back Bruce Dixon?
Well,
right?
yeah.
If you get a guy like that on your gig, I mean, geez, come on, you know.
Funny you mentioned that. We're going to call him back too to do another segment on this show. But
Oh,
this,
awesome.
like, Kim, listen, I don't want to keep you there. I know we had you here.
Oh man, no, I'm fine.
Okay.
But if you guys have to go, feel free to go.
Well, it's the same
good.
thing. Like I said, you know, like 'cause there's so much to cover, and it's such a. Sean and I learn something new every time. Like I said, you know, and it's funny what you're saying right now makes a lot of sense to me. You're a guy that sat around, you know, the kitchen party table, and you knew the jigs, you knew the reels, you knew, you know, the feel, and that whole maritime oomph, if you will. Went to St. FX, honed your skills, and then but you never lost that the roots, you know what I mean, or the work ethic, or just the down home feel. And
Yeah.
you can say what you want. You solidified your parts without question. But I know you're getting the call because you're a handsome boy from fucking North Sydney. That's what happened,
You're
right?
just buttering me up now. You
No, I'm
just
not. I don't have a gig for you. Sorry, man. I can't offer you nothing.
yeah. No, it's been good. You know, if there's anything that I regret, no, regret is not the right word, but the only thing I wonder about is like I was late getting to the table in terms of going, you know, um starting to shape my own songwriting kind of thing and putting out my own stuff. And that's going really well. And but I wonder what would have happened had I pursued that earlier, when I was younger or whatever. But I'm happy. I had to do that. You know, I had to do that. You got if you got it in you, you got to get it out. You know,
Oh,
you
yeah.
gotta.
Yep.
Well,
There's just something else you got to say. You know, and it'll eat you alive if you don't. You
as
know.
my little old grandmother from Glace Bay used to say, any day above ground is a good day. So as long as you're upright, you can keep on trucking there, my man, and just keep
That's for
doing it.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, man. For sure.
Well, that's
It,
and you said you're doing some stuff with Bruce Guthrow now. You're doing some, like, invited to the Songwriters Circle, and you're doing some producing now too.
yeah, I've always been doing a little bit of producing on the side. And I, uh, you know, that's cool when those jobs come down the pipe. I love doing that. Um, I'm doing lots of tracking here at home, which is fun. Like, you know, like for people who are looking for keyboard tracks and stuff like that. But I think maybe because of COVID, uh, I seem to be getting a lot of those calls lately, like tons of them. And so who knows? Maybe I won't go out and play anymore.
So what like so you know, and I don't expect you to kind of, you know, talk at a school or tell tales, but somebody calls up and says they've got a part. What do? Do you negotiate a fee or a rate based upon what you're hearing? Do you have a set? Like, how do you do that?
Um, you know, I basically kind of have a set, but I mean, it depends too. I'm not inflexible. If somebody calls up and they're only working with a certain amount of budget, you know, like, but again, there you go, right? You build up a network, um, and the same thing, and I'm just fortunate. I'm just lucky that it just so happens that the guys that are calling me have heard some stuff that I did for this guy and for that guy and for this guy. But all of these guys are guys that are producing something. It's kind of, I don't know if it's an unwritten rule or whatever, but it's kind of like they kind of know they kind of know what to pay, you know.
Yep.
So and it can be an album rate, or they can pay you per tune or maybe per track or something. But I just, you know, whatever. I just we work it out, and I'm just really happy to get to get those calls, and a lot of them too have been for like arrangements, like for string arrangements too, and I've been doing a good amount of those, and that's something that I love doing, and so there's some more things that just another card in the deck, you know,
Yeah.
that you can play, you know, but that's cool. I love doing that stuff. It's pretty neat, you know.
So Kim,
Well,
is there some place where people can find your stuff now? Is there a website? Is there some things that are online that people can check you out at?
Well, there's my website. I look after that myself, so it's pitiful. I should be posting more things on there. Um, I should be updating it more often, but they can actually go on there and listen to my albums. You can listen to every song in its entirety.
Nice.
You can't people tell me you're crazy, man. You're giving it away. You can't download it, but you can listen to it. And everybody used to be afraid. The big fear, The big fear a few years back was piracy.
Yeah.
Well, now I have a new fear. My fear is obscurity. So, you want to steal my stuff and pass it around, go ahead. I don't care. But, and there's lots of stuff online, like on Facebook and some videos and stuff like that. But yeah, my website is kimdunn.ca. .com is taken. And yeah, that's about it. I need a publicist, man. I don't have all that marketing stuff on going. That
Call me,
social stuff.
brother. We'll talk.
Yeah,
Here's my
I
phone
should
one,
be
too.
yeah, I need to step that up a few notches for sure.
I think
But
you're doing just fine. You sound like you're doing just great. You got just a nice lifestyle. You look happy. You're comfortable. And quite honestly, like I said, you seem like, a hell of a nice guy. So like, there's a reason why you get those calls, like Sean said. You know what I mean? There's a reason for that. So
yeah, well, yeah, I guess so. I don't know. Um, yeah, whatever. Well, there's a few guys around that manage to keep busy too. My old buddy Ross Billard, man, he's a caper. Remember
yep,
yeah,
Ross
I
yep.
do.
from the old battery days, 36 battery, and
Well,
he
he's
put in
playing
his
with
time.
Miles Goodwin now, is he not?
He is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's doing that gig, and Ross just worked the scene, played bars and played the scene all this time, and produces a lot and stuff like that, and he gets the calls too. There's guys around that they get a lot of the calls.
Well, it's good. It's
But
good to hear. Really good to hear, because my big fear, or my fear, not only mine but some other people, were that things are going to come alive again, and the bars are going to say, "Yeah, well, you know what, we're not going to pay," and which would
yeah,
be tragic. But part of that too is self-induced. If you get people that go in for next to nothing and aren't, I guess, team
yeah,
players, in a sense, right? So
yeah,
hopefully that doesn't happen. But it's good these folks are getting the calls and and
yeah,
out staying busy.
Well, to Kim's
yeah, for
point, it's not
sure.
about playing the bars either. I mean, if you're able to reinvent yourself and maybe be a little bit more versatile, there's lots of opportunities. So that's kind of cool too, right? So
Yeah, well, that's it, eh? That's for sure. I always wonder where that next phone call is going to come from, but it always seems to come. Um,
this time it was
and
Sean McKenna.
Yeah,
what's that?
Last time it was Sean McKenna.
yeah.
Where are you guys at? What
We're both in
where?
Dartmouth.
Dartmouth.
Yeah. Is that a bar though? Are you at a bar?
No, it looks like a bar, but well, yeah, it actually is a bar. No, actually, it's a clever green screen, to be honest. But
Is that your man cave or?
uh, I, I
I'm
can,
at Gene Simmons' house, as you can see in the
Right.
background.
I thought so. Yeah.
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 Um,
Check
no
it
one else.
out. Wow.
No one else there. Kim, I'll show you only because we're friends now. Okay, and if you weren't from North Sydney, I wouldn't have shown this to you. Okay, here's what you're really looking at. Right there, it is.
yeah.
All right.
But you know what? I could be on the bridge. I could be in
That's wicked.
grass. Hey, I could be in the friggin' moon. Whatever. It is what it is.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
There you
Awesome.
go.
Yeah. The actual version of Zoom and some $6 Bristol board from the dollar store, man, and you're in business. It's wicked.
How's this series going for you guys? It's pretty good, eh? Pretty cool. You're getting lots of
The show, yeah.
yeah.
It's thank you for asking. Actually, it's funny because Dave and I started this. What, Dave? About 6-8 weeks ago.
But 7 weeks in now.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And we were just
And,
going crazy from that cold COVID shit. We're like,
Yeah.
like, I wasn't. Now Sean kept working all throughout, but I wasn't working, and I was just like, I'm the kind of person that needs to be busy all the time. I need to be distracted. and we were looking to put a band together. We were looking to do this, looking to do that. I bought some recording gear, start doing that. But then I was actually a guest on Sean's as a little radio spot on a Lower Sackville radio station, on a local radio station for sports. There's no sports. He did a music show, so I came on as a guest a couple of times, and the producer was like, oh, geez. Sean said, if the producer likes it, maybe we should do something. I was like, all right, let's go. So we put our heads together and came up with this, and it's been, well, we're 3,000 members. We're 11 countries and 23 cities. It's kind of interesting, you know what I mean?
Wow, man, that's really great.
We're talking to some great people, making some great friends, and it's just been a blast.
Positive,
one of the things that we're finding, Kim, that's really cool. I mean, I'm meeting a guy like you who I knew of you, but I never actually got to meet you, and it's pretty cool. But the one thing too that kind of, this all started because of all the shitty stuff that was going on, COVID stuff that happened with those poor 22 people, so on and so on. And it was just kind of like Dave and I just kind of said, like, we're going to keep it positive as best we can. We've had to throw 2 people out of this group in 7 weeks, which I think is pretty darn good.
Really?
We've managed to keep it positive. And the other thing too is have somebody that comes on. We're respectful and we don't embarrass them, and they know that not going to be a gong show. And so we're having a good time with it, and totally appreciate you doing this. Like I say, it's again, you and I have kind of been in circles that have been, I've known you through Brad, Mark, guys like that, right? So it's nice to actually put a face to a name and have a chat with somebody that I've heard of for so many years. So
yeah, totally, man. Well, likewise, it's great, and I can't imagine why you would embarrass anybody.
Well, we get it though, Kim. Like we've wrapped the cables, we've done the stuff, we lived together, we played the fucking crow pub. We've jumped those 40 stairs. We know what it's like to do the stuff that you've done.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if you and I or Sean were sitting in a bar, we'd be talking just like this. And that's all. This is all the pretense of the show was just hey, let's just have a bar.
Yeah,
talk.
exactly.
Set up on a Barstool, have a band talk, and that's where it's from. So that's it.
Yeah, no, it feels great. I mean, it's a great chat. Feels comfortable, and the right questions. And I mean, I bet you. I mean, I'm not saying you don't know how to embarrass somebody if you wanted to.
It's only because of your cool ceiling. If your ceiling wasn't that cool, it wouldn't feel quite so homey, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Well, and a handsome North Sydney boy, love.
I will say this, Kim, and I mentioned knowing Brad through minor hockey, 16 years of minor hockey, and I've gone to the grocery store trying to buy a couple bags of chips and been there for 3 friggin' hours with parents that want to tear me a new one. So it's like I'm very respectful of both of people's times and of not putting anybody on the spot. And I also am smart to realize that if I want to have them come back, I don't want them to think that I keep telling people it's so nice to meet somebody that's a good person and not a dick, and I don't want to be a dick and have them not want to come back and talk.
Well, hey, I come back anytime. You just made me laugh, man. Talking about Brad and then going to the superstore or something you said there for. Jesus, the last time I saw Brad was you know Brad, so.
Oh, yeah.
Now this is Brad, right? Like, I bumped into him at the superstore last few weeks back, and we we came across a sweet potato, the sweet potato bin, and there just so happened to be one in there that he grabs, and it looked like, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's just say phallic, and I mean, it was ridiculous. It was just absolutely ridiculous the way that 2 grown, you'd think, mature, sophisticated, I don't know, whatever you want to call 2 people who can actually have a conversation. It was a shit show. We spent a good solid half an hour there, like, laughing over this.
Boys have a potato envy.
Yeah.
Brad, he's friggin' hilarious, man. Like he is. So I get to talk to him in many different sorts of things, and just his sense of humor, man. Like, I get it for sure.
Oh,
And,
it's just it was
he's
absolutely ridiculous.
All right.
Yeah.
We got to sign off.
We spent a little bit of time on the road together with we both did a little stint with Gordy Sampson way back when.
Right.
Did a few shows and got to travel a little bit. We had some fun times. Brad's terrific. Yeah.
Good fella.
Sure. Yeah.
Listen, so we can have you back then? Is it okay, Kim, to call you back? Hey,
anytime, man.
no pun
Anytime.
intended. Yeah. All right. Well,
You know what might be fun? You know what might be fun? Just thinking about this right now. Because we had MJ on, and MJ was great, but she was like, "Oh, well, we should do a Sean, Dave, Kim, and MJ segment. That would be cool."
Yeah, man.
we set that up. And
that
she's
up.
fine.
Yeah.
She's in Alaska now, so we gotta wait.
Right.
It must be late at night now. So
Right.
you're
okay.
You're postured now. You're a formal musician now. You may go to bed at 9:30. I'm not sure now, Kim. I don't want to keep you up late.
You're right. You're right, man. It's pitiful. It really is. Listen, this is, I'll stay up until about 11 or 11:30. Well, midnight or 1 if there's a reason to. But man, I'm sitting here some nights at 11 o'clock in this seat, and my chin is hitting my chest. Like it's just absolutely pitiful.
Jeez.
But hey, it's not the late nights that kill me. It's the early mornings. I'm up and at it pretty early.
Yeah, I have both those predictions. All right, we gotta go. We'll call you back though. We'll have you back on. It's been an absolute pleasure, a treat to have you on, Kim.
Mine too.
Yeah, see, this
pleasure's
is
all mine.
We love making new friends. This is what it's all about. So.
Yeah, well, thanks, guys. What will you do now? Like, you'll put this together, or what?
Yep. I'll let you know we're gonna post it.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Make me proud now.
Okay.
Take care, guys. Nice stuff. Good talking to you.
You
Thanks.
take care.
Okay.